Welcome back for another interesting episode of the Randomness of Nothing podcast. As always, I always try to reach out and talk to people with the opportunity to pick their brains about the lifestyle that they've chosen, the people that they help, and the journeys along the way while they do so. I'm honored today to have Dr. Munira Zahabi, who's a podcast host, a niche strategist, a marketing strategist, consultant, podcaster, who's here to give you tips about the insight in her career and what she does. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashad. Thank you so much for having me. Greetings from Chicagoland. Hi, everybody.
Good. I hope you got blessed with better weather than we did out here in Detroit. It's been kind of chilly.
Well, the thing is, that yesterday it was 85 in the morning and it went to 36. So I don't know.
Oh,
Somebody up there is playing with the thermostat up there.
Yeah, it's been fun lately. I'll tell you that. So I'm obviously very honored that you got a chance to come onto the show. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and, for the audience purposes, what you do?
So I have a background in healthcare. We've been in the pharma world, not a pharmacist, but I started out as a pharmacy technician. Then I grew up in my role as a pharmacy buyer, and with that role came more responsibilities of not only managing the hospital pharmacy budget, but also with taking care of the pharmacy technician interns and pharmacy students that were going to become pharmacists. So what happened was when they would come into my office, they would be overwhelmed with whatever they are doing. And I just kind of became a mentor to them. And at that time, this is like years ago, I didn't know that you could make money out of this. And then I graduated with my master's and I decided, okay, you know what? I need to take this to a second level. But I left my job at the hospital and I became a consultant for a Fortune 17 company. And I would go to different hospital systems. And again, I kind of mentored people along the way, not realizing that coaching could become a life calling, but it was a way that I could help people understand what their niche is and why they should or should not be in the business they are in. So sometimes a job is just a stepping stone for a lot of people and they're trying to figure out what the next thing is. But many times, people don't realize they just do a job for 30 years and they don't know what this other thing they have to do. Anyway, so that kind of transitioned and then I lost my job and I figured out, okay, I need to do something else. Some guy, a mentor, if I would, he reached out from LinkedIn and said, you need a coach. Got into a coaching program. So I'm Maxwell certified, Maldini certified, Tony Robbins certified, you name it. I got the certifications of coaching and I started all of that. But the thing is, I realized that once people get their coaching certificates, they don't know what to do. Or exactly, I see a lot of people going to maybe accounting school, but are not doing accounting anymore. Some people go to pharmacy school, but are not in pharmacy school anymore. So what is it that makes them tick? And I always wanted to figure out what is a definition of success. So I started looking into the interior of the coaching industry and I started talking to other people and I realized that, people don't really know what their niche is. And I became the Niche Navigator because I would sit down with them and talk to them about exactly what it is that you have, what skills you have, and where can you take these skills and go to in life, right?
I think that's scary for people too, because, and I don't mean to cut you off, but there's this mentality that's been perpetuated that you have to get this degree, you have to do this internship, you have to have this particular linear path to be successful. And when that's kind of burned into your DNA, you miss what you might really be good at because you're following the societal or what your family ultimately says what the pinnacle of success could be.
So I'm the only one in my family who went to school and got my bachelor's, my associates, my bachelor's, my master's, and a doctorate. I'm the only one. So I have two brothers who haven't done any of that stuff, but they both are very more successful than I am, right? So, and then you look at people like Steve Jobs and people like what was the guy with Tesla?
Bill Gates, who dropped out of college, Mark Zuckerberg and stuff like
that. They're college graduate. They went to college, they dropped out, but they're multimillionaires. So how does that happen? So I think what, right, not millionaires, yeah, billionaires. But the thing is, what exactly happened in their life that allowed them to take that step? And I think the first thing is mindset. We have to
Yes.
figure out what we have to know as an entrepreneur is what is it that we want to do and what is
Right.
our mindset. So as a niche navigator, I then became an author, started writing books. And then one thing that happened was I really liked talking to people. That's some I can talk to anybody. So I
Yeah.
started talking to people and I started reaching out to people to come on my own show. And my show is
No
Munira's
question.
Musings. And
Yeah.
this year is going to be my 10th year of having the show. But
It's
I've
fantastic.
talked to I've talked to 600, over 600 entrepreneurs. And the
That's
thing
amazing.
is, what makes them tick, right? What makes
Hmm.
their world go around? And how
Yes.
are they, what is it, what does success mean to
Yes.
them? And how do they
Yes.
define success? Now,
Yes.
we could have $1 billion and not be successful, or we could be very successful in my own way. So, to me, success means different things, right? It means for a young mother is okay, I have my own business, and for me, being successful is where I can spend my time with my kids more and then do what I
Hmm.
love when they are sleeping. So, that's a
Hmm.
definition of success. For some, it's going to be, hey, you know what? I've interviewed 100 people on my podcast and I'm good. So
Right.
it is a different strategy for everything else. So what I do now is, apart from teaching people about their niche, figuring out what their niche product or what their calling is. So niches can be two things. One can be what is it that you are called to do, and then the other thing is who is your ideal
Right.
client. That could be a niche market as well. Apart from that, I teach people how
Right.
to
Right.
communicate and how to give your business a voice, because then I realized that people talk about stuff but don't talk about their business. They'll give advice like crazy. If I
Right.
asked you today, Rashad, I'm in Detroit, can you tell me what restaurant to
Yeah.
go to? You'll give me a few options, right? Same thing if you came to
Correct.
Chicago, I'll do the same. But the thing is, we give
Yeah.
advice for other people's business. We never talk about our own. So
Right.
how then do we talk about our own business?
I think the key, like what I figured out in the trials and navigations of doing this show, and I can only speak from personal experience because I've had some ideas that didn't launch pad, and it was my fault because if you don't find something that you're passionate about, that you can wake up, that you won't have immediate results with, then it won't work. Because the reality about it is, in order to get to that level of where you feel successful, you can't be caught up in the instant gratification, so to speak. It's the old saying of you're an overnight success 10 years in the making. You have to do interviews when maybe nobody's watching, and you still have to maintain a high level of professionalism because the two or three people who did catch it could lead to something special for you. So you have to always be prepared. You have to always be ready. And then I will tell people, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. When people are trying to find their niche, don't settle, don't worry about it being perfect. Start. Like, right. So, very few times, yes. And people need to be honest with themselves. In this era of where things are easily duplicated, replicated, and quickly, immediately have imitators, you have to sell yourself because there's not very many things that are out right now that can't be replicated within 5 minutes at this
Right. And I
point.
mean, we are in a, I think our generation, Rashad, and of course I'm dating myself, we went from this phone on the wall, right? And then
Yes.
connected to the phone, to a cell phone, to a
Right.
powerful device on our hands. And
Yes.
now we're in the AI technology, and it is
Correct.
so amazing that
Right.
people are embracing it so faster, but there are so many people who are so scared about it.
Correct.
So my
Yes.
whole focus is, why are you not talking about your business? I mean,
Correct.
then how do people know what you're doing?
Right.
And that was my problem. I had my podcast, I had my books, I had all of those things that everybody told me to do, and I had to put it all together. But then I wasn't talking about it, and I never saw, and I complained that nobody knows me. Well,
Right.
it took me a few minutes, and I will say a few minutes, it's time being, the key word here,
Oh yeah.
because I needed to figure out. The thing is, how do I let other people know? There's a lot of other people who don't know what I do. But there are people
Yes.
who, like, I went to Nairobi in January, and there were so many people who came up to me and said, "We follow you and we love what you do."
Isn't that
And I
crazy?
was like, "Oh, yeah, it's like all the way in Kenya where I'm
It
from,
is
but
amazing.
I didn't know I had followers there." So the thing is, if I don't talk about it, who's going to know? Right. And so for entrepreneurs, if you are doing something, let people know. And one
Yeah.
way to do it is a podcast. It's free,
Absolutely.
it's
Right.
amazingly available, and there are, you wouldn't believe the statistics, but there's always almost 3 million podcasts around the
For sure.
world,
For sure.
and growing every day. That was the
Yeah.
last semantics that I got.
Correct. And so, and the thing that people, and so now I use like the example of streaming services, right? There's a plethora of streaming services, and then they're all
Right.
vying for the same customer. But the ones that get the higher subscriber growth, number one, I mean, Netflix is obviously the dominant player in the game. So, but everybody replicated one another, right? Because they want that same respective audience base. So, when you're trying to get into the coaching business, when you're trying to get into the podcasting business, like sometimes people spend too much time, and myself included. Oh man, how am I going to be different? How am I going to be different? Well, the key is just to put out a good product and get a customer base for yourself. Because the reality about it is that I'm not saying you can't be different, but maybe you're the different person that is presenting it as opposed to the product itself, right? Because, AI companies, all these AI companies are literally doing the exact same thing to the T. These streaming services are all doing the exact
Right.
same thing, but they may have a specific show that you like, but they all have the same algorithms, they all have the same preferences, they all have the same menu layout because people expect a certain standard and format. You're buying what the actual product inside the service that they provide, as opposed to the name of Paramount, Netflix, Disney, etc.
And that's true, right? Because, like, we watched ER at one
Right.
point, and now we have
Yes.
Grey's Anatomy. So which one
Correct.
did you watch, right? And
Right.
how you hooked on? Sometimes the content is the same, and that's
Yes.
also the same for entrepreneurs out there, because you could be selling the same thing as the guy next door,
100%.
but the thing is, how do you figure out who your niche client is, ideal client is, and who and what do you say to them?
Yes.
Or there are times when you're not saying anything.
Right.
It reminds me of a fair, when you go to a fair and say, "Come get your hot dogs, come get your tickets on this thing," and everybody's shouting, and it's so loud. But if
Right.
you don't talk louder, or you don't stand out, your product is never going to sell.
Correct.
So why are then, the question, this is a multi-million dollar question, is that why are then the entrepreneurs of the today are not talking about their product? Why are they not shouting out and saying, "Hey, come get your goods here"?
I would like to think that, I'm sure there's tons that are doing, but I think that the biggest issue that people run into is, okay, maybe I'm a certain age, maybe time has passed me by, maybe I'm not technologically savvy, or maybe they just generally don't know how to actually present their product, because you have to be able to summarize what you do in really short amount of time, what you're present like. It sounds funny, right? Because we get caught up in, I have to be everything all at once. I have to be, my thing has to be a deep meaning. If it's too explainable, it's too easy, right? And then, but the reality about it is, if you have, if you want to kill, an ant, you got ants in your house, you're looking for what's going to kill ants right away. You don't need the deeper meaning of the conversation about what that is. You just need to get bug spray, and you're going to buy the first bug spray. It doesn't kill ants. Perfect. Buying it
Well,
right
well,
away.
well let me stop you right there about the ant stuff, because there are some people who are going to say, "Oh, we're going to figure out the environment, which one
Yeah.
is not going
True.
to kill the other things." So you have to do your research. Yes, and there are people like that, and that's
Right.
okay to do. But don't take forever to do your research.
Exactly.
Find the answer and go for it.
Exactly. Exactly. And to your point, I think when you overcomplicate the answer, you lose the customer, right? So that's why, like for people like restaurants, a lot of restaurants had to reduce their menu because it was too much information for the customer to actually absorb and make a buying decision. If it's a fast food,
Right.
if it's a coffee, a Starbucks, or something of that nature, you have to have a condensed menu because you have to keep that line moving very quickly so you can get on to the next. They have times and windows, and when you have 25 different items up there, people to select from, that's too much information for them to absorb all at one time.
Right, you're right. So that's why now you go to McDonald's or you go to a Sonic,
Small
they
menu.
have three flavors: chocolate, chocolate,
That's it.
vanilla, or strawberry. There's no other things unless you're
Nope.
at an ice cream shop. But
That's
that's
different.
what they do. Right, that's different. It's a different line. So I
Correct.
get what you're saying. But the thing is, the question that I said is why they're not talking about it. And you brought up a good point. They don't know, but they also sometimes there's the two things that I found is people want to perfect their
Yes.
pitch, they want to
Yes.
perfect their
Yes.
product. And you know what? If we take any lessons from the giants, Microsoft, I started out with Windows 3.1.
Yeah. Yeah.
That tells you how old I am. But that was it, and I loved 95. But then
Yes.
they came out but before that, they came out with ME, which was a bogus product, and it
Oh, it was
just drove
terrible. It was
nuts.
terrible. I had it
And
was
so then
awful.
yeah, and 95 was the platform all the Windows are working on. But here's the thing, that product was so successful. Now they keep enhancing. Now we are now not 95 anymore. We are now on Windows 11.
Right.
Same thing with Apple. Yeah, those guys, they created the first Apple phone, and now I don't know, it's like 17 that's out there. But why
Right.
then do they have a new feature? Because they have to keep up with the technology.
Of
And
course they
that's
do.
what I tell the entrepreneurs, start. If you're a baker,
Yes.
start
100%.
baking.
100%. 100%. And you hit the nail on the head because I started a podcast, right? And so the biggest fear I had, the number one biggest hardest thing was actually starting. And then your first fear was like, am I going to get guests? Is anybody going to be wanting to talk to me? Right? It's like school as a kid. I just want somebody to play, like first day of kindergarten. And then you start getting guests, and then eventually you start to realize, even though I'm never going to call myself good. The worst thing I ever did was not start. So if you have a plan, if you have a product, if you have get a small group of people to test it out, and if you feel somewhat confident in it, it doesn't have to be perfect. You have to be able to take criticism and feedback and refine it. But at the same time, the worst thing you could absolutely do is to not start because it's not perfect. You have
Yeah,
to
you're
start.
right. You are so right. If you look at my videos, I have a channel on Munira's Musings on YouTube. And if you look at my previous videos, all of my interviews are on there. And
Yes.
literally, if you look at the first ones, they're just ramblings with a person that was on the show. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't cut, nothing, it just uploaded it. And then as I grew, I realized, you know what, I need to condense it, make it I've made a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of mistakes in business, right? So the mistakes I made was anytime a person was available, hey, would you like to be on my show? I'm available at 3 o'clock. Okay, so I'll do that. Talk to them from 3 to 4. Talk to somebody at from 4 to 5. I forget what I'm supposed to do. Take care of the kids, not cook or anything, but I would be doing this.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where it was really
Yep.
stressful, not only
Yep.
on me but also the family. So then you had to streamline. I realized looking at other things, looking at other podcasters, getting on their calendars that they had a plan
How
where they were
organized
doing
they are.
only things at a certain time. The organization took me forever to get to this point, but now it's done correctly. Now I'm not saying that I'm doing it correctly, the gurus that are out there, but hey, it works for me. It's a streamlined process. I do
Right.
52 shows a year, and it's a Monday at 9:30. If anybody wants to be on my show, most welcome to share with me your insight with me.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about it is that you don't exactly have a lot of people you could tap on the shoulder and that'll sit back and say, "Hey, show me exactly how to do this from scratch, and I'll follow this." Like you watch shows, but you won't know until you have the microphone in front of you. You have to edit it yourself. You have to hold a conversation. You have to dive deep into those questions with people and have a good topic that is also going to resonate with an audience and grow your show. Ultimately, it's trial and error, so to speak, right? So because of the trial
Yeah.
and error process, you're going to find out, yeah, that really didn't go as well as I thought it did, or maybe I didn't have as successful as experience. But you have to get over that fear of
Yeah, and
quote unquote looking
and with
bad.
the
I look at some of my
podcast,
earlier videos and I'm like, oh man, that was a rough one.
right, you're
You
right.
know?
I mean, the videos weren't right, the camera wasn't right. We didn't have the proper microphones, and at that time when I started, podcasts were not that big. There were like, there was some, but I
Right.
just wanted to talk to people, and truly, if I
Yes.
really be very very honest with myself, the reason I really started was I wanted to figure out what is the definition of success for
Yeah.
everybody that's out there doing it, making it. So what makes you successful is what was the question, the
Yes.
underlying question. I never asked them that. I just said, tell me about yourself and talk to me about your business. What I also found out, there's a lot of people out there who really don't talk about their business. They give you a way to do it. This is
Right.
what I do, but they don't talk about the
Right.
results that the person going to listen to them get the results. They never talk about the results. So one thing that if any entrepreneur is out there listening, you always want to talk, if you work with me or if you buy this product or if whatever, what is the end result is what you're going to get. If you
Right.
don't show
Right.
the end result, then you are going to be in a lot of trouble. So always
Well,
start
it's
with the end in
yes.
mind.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny
Go
is
ahead.
it's like when I do this show, right? So like if you told 10 people, hey, I have a podcast show, the average person who's just kind of brushing you off is gonna say, oh, good for you. You're gonna get that one person that's gonna be like, show me your show. Show me the details of your show. Show me the link. Show me your podcast. Show me on Apple. They're going to start asking you some very deep, probing questions when you say that when you have a business or you have a product. And at that moment, that's what you call the moment of truth. That's the put up or shut up moment, so to speak. So that's when you're going to find out either you're a talker or you're a doer. Right. And so you can show your YouTube channel, you can show your subscribers, your listeners, your guests, and I can do exactly the same. So for people who are looking to actually like have a viable business and be successful, and I am not talking from the mountaintop here, but what I have learned is that it's better that I have something that somebody can say that I'm doing and then criticize me for that than just sit back and say, well, I'm kind of just thinking about it, but I haven't started it yet. That's a very, very, very poor conversation.
So let me tell you, I love the fact that you said that you're just talking, not talking to the mountain top. But I followed Tony Robbins, I followed Bob Proctor, and I realized that they started a very long time before I did.
Right.
So they've got a few decades ahead of me. Excuse
Hmm?
me. So they've got a lot of time, and they've got a lot of practice, and they've got a lot of following. Well, we are starting out. So for those people who are starting out, don't look at the entrepreneurs that are the giants. Yes, one day you're going to
Absolutely
go
not.
there, because the thing is, you never know. Nobody ever talks. Even I've seen Tony Robbins on many many occasions, but the only one signature story he talks about is that there was no food at home and he was hungry. He doesn't
Right.
talk about his family structure or how he started in this industry. He doesn't have it. I don't know the story. Even if he's talked about it, it's not out there that anybody can get. So what I'm saying to your audience is, look at the giants and think of that the peak you want to climb, but
Right.
find a mentor who's walked two steps ahead of you.
Right.
You know,
Without
this
question.
was a lesson that I heard from another mentor. What he said to me, that if you are in a snowstorm or you're in a dangerous terrain, you always follow the footsteps of the person who is ahead of you. So you put your
Without
foot
question.
where they've put.
Yes.
And so you don't want to go to the peak, somebody who's already reached the peak. You always want to follow the guy who is one step or two step ahead of you, so you can
Right.
use their path as your stepping stone. Now, if you
Right.
get that analogy, please use it.
Right. And then number two is that, these people willingly share their information by hosting a podcast, and you know this. these people would normally be like, hey, they're willingly sharing this information with you because they've gone through those trying periods, and you have to take those nuggets of information and say, okay, well, hey, avoid this, hey, do this instead, this worked for me, and they're giving you all of this insight to basically say, for lack of a better term, maybe you won't get stuck in the snowstorm like I did, right? And so when you start
Right.
realizing those nuggets of information that are being bestowed upon you, I don't want to say it'll make it easier because it's not easy, but you can avoid certain things that could trip you up, so to speak. And that's the beauty of doing a show, talking to successful people who have done things in the field you're looking to get into. And also, in addition to that, when it comes to finding your niche, finding your passion, finding your love, always focus on something that you would do when nobody is watching. What do you genuinely enjoy doing when maybe there is no audience or there is no instant gratification, but it brings you joy to do it? It could be something so simple as, man, I cooked and I really enjoyed putting this meal. It doesn't have to be elaborate. I really enjoy cooking. I just like to cook, right? Or, I like to work on cars in my free time. It's staring you right in the face of what your passion is. You just inherently do it because it just clicks with you.
You can use your passion to create a business too, because there's so many
Yes.
people who want to learn what you know.
Yes.
So like for me, I don't know how to change. Or I don't know how to do oil change, and if you want to teach me that, I'll come out there and learn. But I'm not the
Yeah.
type to do that because I have never understood cars. I just
Right.
tell everybody, give me a car and I know tell me where to put the gas in, and I'll drive it and I'll bring it back. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't ask
Exactly.
me
Right.
stuff about cars.
Right. You'll get the oil change, the tire rotation, adhere to the schedule, the maintenance schedule, but I don't want to be under the hood of it. Look, that's right. But then there are some people that's all they love to do, right? And that's, being on this show, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Being on this
I
show.
was just going to say, being on this show, you get a chance to appreciate people who have passions, who will talk at length about what they love.
Right. And that's the whole thing. What I'm learning is, it doesn't take like, I see these ads all the time where people are saying that, if you do use this software, if you do this, you'll get $10,000 a
Oh
month,
my
or you
gosh.
can make, $10,000 a week or a day, or you'll get so many followers in one movie, one posting. Let me just tell you that it doesn't happen overnight.
No,
Even if I sat with
no.
Tony Robbins today, he's going to tell me the same thing. Hey, you know what? It took me 40 years to build this. So we are not Tony Robbins. We are starting out.
Not
And
even
if you're
close.
starting out, it's okay. Start. That's the thing. Start, and it's going to grow. At one point, I had 0 followers and I just didn't want to be
Exactly.
on Instagram. And then
Yep.
now I have 2,000 followers, and it's like, oh, it's growing now. It's a little growing. There's a little bit of growth, and every day you see one more person increasing, and
Yes.
that's generic growth that's happening.
It's like the equivalent of, you want to start a restaurant, or you want to, let's say you want to sell burgers, fries, and shakes, right? Well, you can already forget about knocking at McDonald's off the top of the perch. Like, you can, or don't even put that in your mind, right? But if you sit back and say, hey, in my neighborhood, I have the best burger, fry, and steak joint, and you have cultivated a dedicated customer base, you employ people, you're successful, and then it's a profitable business. Measure your own success in that, right? So I am not delusional to think that my show, I'm going to be Joe Rogan. That thought cannot enter my mind at all. He's been around for too long. His name is synonymous with the brand of podcasting, and he's a UFC commentator on top of it. But if I get my own following and niche, and if I get my own brand to be successful unto itself, and I measure that by my specific success and audience that I've cultivated, then I've got my niche that you have told people about. Because to your point, people not there's enough small businesses out there and enough other things out there that you can be successful in your own lane. It's just the willingness to try.
That's the whole thing. Is the fact is, entrepreneurs. I started working with somebody last July, and they came on my show. They were very happy. They started their podcast. And then I said, let me just get on your podcast and be a guest. And she told me she's not doing this anymore. This is not
Mm.
for me. Well, it could be not for you, but she tried it. She tried it for 3 months. She couldn't do it. She's got family obligations. She has time obligations, so she couldn't do it. She may take it up again. But the thing is, if you don't try, like I hear young mothers tell their kids, if you don't try it, you'll never know how it tastes. So you got to try
Right.
it and tell me how you, at least you
Exactly.
tried it.
Exactly.
So that's the thing, is go ahead and try it. I mean, you got kids, right? You know
Yeah.
that
Oh
you
yeah.
have to tell
Oh
them, try the sweet potato. If you don't
yeah.
like it, you cannot have it again.
Well, right. And then the other thing about it is too is what you'll find out is, and oh, this is going to sound, if you stick with something long enough, by default, other people will fall out, and maybe you'll gain momentum because you stuck with it, right? So
Right,
because
right.
like if like I'm doing my podcast, right? I have over 170 episodes released. Everything hasn't been
Awesome.
perfect. I haven't been the best host, but there's been enough momentum built because most people don't last that long that my numbers climb. So maybe the people that didn't, that were listening to somebody else, still want to listen, and maybe they heard me because hey, this was in the same lane of what I was listening to, but this guy's still here. So,
Right.
and I'm fine with that because listen, if I'm not your first choice, I'm still a choice, right? So it's not a
Yeah,
big deal.
yes.
I'm not complaining about that. So, but it's my job to still put out a presentable product to the customer that's listening, and to be a good host, or the best possible version of that.
Right,
I
right.
always go ahead.
You have to be genuine. You have to be yourself. You can't replicate other people's styles. I mean, you mentioned it. Mr.
Exactly.
Beast is another one. He's out there also, and he's like, he takes over the podcast world. Right? Well, he's out there, so he does. But the thing is, you cannot replicate other people's style. You have to be your own
Yeah,
self. That's why that
you do.
makes you genuine. So,
Yes.
entrepreneurs, if you're listening to us, this is amazing. Thank you, Rashad, for allowing me to
Yeah.
share my thoughts. But
Yeah.
the thing is, hey guys, start. Start and
100%.
talk about what you want to talk. There are people who talk about what they're going to do and never do it.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
and
So I always ask. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
my mentor used to say this: four frogs sitting there thinking about jumping on in the water, how many jumped in? Well, none, because they're still thinking about it. Well, don't
Exactly.
think about it, just jump.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a testament to people's staying power, and the people that I've talked to who have been so successful. And the number one thing that they always agreed upon was, don't be paralyzed by fear and the unknown. It's and these opportunities can take you places and talk to people that you never would get a chance to talk to under normal circumstances, because people don't take the risks because they're scared or because they're uncertain of themselves. For the purpose of this show, where can people find Dr. Munira Zahabi? Your services that you provide, your coaching, and your YouTube channel, and all the other things to get in contact with.
So all my links and everything that you want to find me is on thenichenavigator.com.
Beautiful.
So easy to find, thenichenavigator.com. No spaces, no dashes, just one full word, and all
Beautiful.
of my services are on there. You can see the links of all the podcasts that I've been on, and all of the links that I've had guests on. And I invite people to just reach out and talk to me. Any 30-minute conversation where I can enlighten you and brighten your day would be amazing to have.
And that's beautiful. And I do want to say to the audience, if you like this episode, please subscribe, so we can get guests more, and, listen to people like Dr. Munira Sahabi, because I think that the one thing about, entrepreneurship, creativity, is that if you're listening, age has no limits when it comes to what you want to accomplish, right? So, your athletic career is over, but just because you've reached a certain year, in age, if you decide you want to follow your passion, throw that number out of the window, because at the end of the day, your mind is holding you back. You have to have the will to start.
Yeah, go ahead and start. Go ahead and talk about your business, because if you don't give your business a voice, who will?
Exactly. Absolutely. And so I want to thank you for your time. This has been an absolute honor and pleasure, and I hope we have another follow-up message to speak about
Thank you, Rashad, for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
as well.